Stoicism is a philosophy that has taught people for centuries how to take control of their lives. The most effective way to defeat your enemies is not by direct confrontation, but by establishing mental superiority, being patient, and thinking strategically. Stoics provide ways to win without fighting and neutralize your enemies without conflict. Here are 13 Stoic ways to defeat your enemies, each filled with powerful, deep, and life-changing principles. 1. Focus on what you can control. One of the core principles of Stoicism is focusing on what you can control. In life, you don't have full control over events, your enemy's actions, or environmental factors. However, your responses, thoughts, and actions are entirely within your control. Embracing this principle minimizes the impact of external events and makes you mentally stronger. You don't have control over your enemy's attempts to harm you, but how you respond to those attempts is entirely up to you. When your enemies attack or try to harm you, you can defeat them not by retaliating, but by controlling your reactions. This is what the Stoics call apatheia, a state of emotional independence. Apatheia is the ability to remain calm and balanced in the face of external events. When you control your reactions to your enemy's criticisms or attacks, you render their efforts ineffective. By focusing on your own thoughts and actions, your enemy's power diminishes. Worrying about uncontrollable events and people only wastes your energy. Stoic philosophers advise accepting these external factors and directing your energy toward what you can control. When you ignore your enemy's attempts to harm you and focus on your inner world, their actions become powerless. 2. Control your emotions. Stoics believe that one of humanity's greatest weaknesses is excessive emotions. Emotions, especially intense ones like anger, fear, or jealousy, weaken a person and hinder rational thinking. When you let your enemies anger or upset you, you give them the power to control you. However, by keeping your emotions in check, you can neutralize their attempts to harm you. Stoicism teaches that you should remain entirely rational in the face of external events. When an enemy tries to provoke you, their goal is often to elicit an emotional response. When you succumb to anger or fear, your mind becomes clouded, making it difficult to make rational decisions. This benefits your enemies. However, if you suppress your emotions in such situations, you can thwart their plans. Mental calm and balance are your most effective weapons against your enemies. As Epictetus said, we are not disturbed by events, but by the views we take of them. When an enemy insults or belittles you, instead of reacting emotionally, you can maintain your inner peace and take control of the situation. Emotional outbursts make it easier for your enemies to manipulate you. But when you control your emotions, you build an invincible defense against their attacks. 3. Use their presence for your own growth. Enemies are often seen as the challenges of life. However, according to the Stoics, difficulties are actually opportunities that strengthen a person, making them more resilient and wiser. Instead of viewing your enemies as threats, you can use their presence as opportunities for personal growth. Stoic philosophers believe that every challenge is a teacher. Rather than engaging in conflict with your enemies, focus on the lessons they offer to contribute to your personal development. When an enemy puts you in a difficult situation or tries to harm you, consider it a challenge and use it to improve yourself. Strengthen your mental resilience, patience, and strategic thinking by using this opportunity. For instance, when a competitor tries to make you look bad, see it as motivation to improve and become even better. Challenges make you stronger and more resilient. Marcus Aurelius said, "The obstacle is the way." The moments when your enemies try to block your progress are opportunities for you to learn and grow. By strategically using their moves to your advantage, you can become stronger thanks to their presence. Depending on how you handle them, your enemies can strengthen rather than weaken you. 4. Learn to be patient. Patience is one of the most important virtues for the Stoics. Being patient means observing the situation and waiting for the right moment, rather than reacting impulsively. Patience is one of the most powerful ways to defeat your enemies without fighting. Decisions made in haste usually weaken you and give your enemies the advantage. By patiently analyzing the situation and thinking strategically, you gain a significant advantage. Being patient means waiting for your enemies to make a mistake. While they act impulsively and aggressively, you can calmly observe and discover their weaknesses. You don't have to respond to your enemy's attacks immediately. Patience gives you the time to understand their plans and act at the right moment. While they rush into action, you can develop a calm and calculated strategy. Patience is also a sign of mental endurance. When your enemies try to provoke you, demonstrating patience undermines their plans. Hasty reactions usually lead to illogical and incorrect decisions, but patience allows you to act strategically and consciously. Patient individuals are more composed and make smarter decisions in difficult situations, which gives them an advantage over their enemies. 5. Respond with your successes, not words. The best response to your enemies is not through words, but through your successes. Stoics emphasize the importance of demonstrating your actions rather than wasting time with empty arguments or conflicts. When your enemies try to belittle or weaken you, focus on your own work and succeed. Success is the most effective response you can give to your enemies. If an enemy criticizes you or wants you to fail, instead of responding with words, answer with successful outcomes. Your successes will invalidate their criticisms and silence them. Quietly working and focusing on your achievements is the most effective way to neutralize your enemies without fighting. Stoic philosophers advise showing yourself through your actions and not concerning yourself with what others say. For example, if a competitor at work envies or wants to see you fail, don't argue or blame them. Instead, focus on your projects and achieve successful results. Your successes will undermine all their efforts. The most effective way to respond to your enemies is to succeed quietly and persistently. 6. Don't let them control you. When your enemies try to control you, they gain power over you. They may try to weaken you by appealing to your emotions or fears. However, when you don't allow them to control you, they become powerless. Stoics believe that a person's mental freedom is their greatest strength. As long as you control your thoughts and emotions, your enemies cannot harm you. When an enemy tries to provoke you, don't let them reach you. Controlling your mind and emotions neutralizes their plans. When your enemies anger or frighten you, they gain power over you. But by recognizing this and avoiding emotional reactions, you prevent them from controlling you. As long as you maintain your mental freedom, your enemies have no power over you. As Epictetus said, no one can make you angry or sad unless you let them. When your enemies try to harm you, you can gain the upper hand by maintaining your inner strength instead of responding to their efforts. When you don't let them control you, you defeat them without fighting. 7. Build mental resilience. Mental resilience is the key to dealing with challenges in life, according to the Stoics. Mental resilience is your ability to remain logical and calm under pressure and resist external events. When your enemies try to wear you down, the strength of your mental resilience renders their attacks ineffective. Every challenge your enemies present tests your mental strength. Being mentally strong allows you to resist their plans. When your enemies apply pressure, keeping your mind calm and strengthening your resilience will neutralize their influence. Mental resilience is a strong defense mechanism against external threats. One way to build mental resilience is through regular meditation and mental training. Stoics believe that daily meditation strengthens the mind and makes a person more resistant to challenges. These practices help you remain calm and rational in the face of any threat posed by your enemies. As you strengthen your mental resilience, your enemy's power diminishes. 8. Don't underestimate your enemies. Underestimating your enemies can often catch you unprepared. Stoics advise approaching every situation and every person with an objective and neutral mindset. Underestimating your enemies can cause you to overlook their strengths and abilities. Instead of underestimating your enemies, understanding their strengths and weaknesses gives you a strategic advantage. Knowing your enemies and understanding how strong or weak they are provides you with a strategic advantage over them. Discovering their weaknesses and being prepared for their strengths allows you to neutralize them. Every enemy has weaknesses. By analyzing and using these weaknesses strategically, you can prevail. By taking your enemies seriously and evaluating them properly, you can prevent them from defeating you. 9. Acknowledge your own weaknesses. One of the most important ways to defeat your enemies is by first recognizing your own weaknesses and improving them. Stoics say that recognizing your weaknesses is the greatest strength. When you analyze your weaknesses, you prevent your enemies from exploiting them. As you strengthen your internal weaknesses, you become more powerful against your enemies. Recognizing your weaknesses allows you to predict how your enemies will try to attack. If you have a weakness, you can strengthen it and close off any paths your enemies might use to harm you. For example, when you strengthen your emotional weaknesses, it becomes impossible for your enemies to use them against you. As you develop your weaknesses, it becomes harder for your enemies to gain an advantage over you. Outshine them. One of the most effective ways to defeat your enemies is to ignore them completely and quietly move forward. By not even mentioning your enemies and ignoring their presence, you render all their efforts meaningless. Stoics emphasize the importance of advancing with humility and quiet strength. Quietly working and increasing your success without responding to your enemies' criticisms or attacks is the most effective way to neutralize them without fighting. Your successes overshadow your enemy's presence. As you quietly and steadily succeed, their plans and actions lose meaning. By ignoring your enemies and giving them no attention, you render them powerless and ineffective. Quietly and consistently advancing is one of the most strategic ways to neutralize your enemies. 11. Focus on your own life. Instead of wasting time fighting your enemies, direct your energy toward your own growth and happiness. Stoics believe that focusing on your internal world neutralizes external threats. Don't let your enemies control you or harm you. Instead, focus on your life and goals. As you continue on your path and increase your achievements, your enemy's ability to affect you diminishes. By focusing on your own life, you can neutralize your enemy's attempts to harm you. While they attack or try to stop you, their influence weakens as you stay focused on your goals and success. As you build your inner happiness and success, your enemy's presence loses significance. Taking control of your own life renders their attempts to harm you ineffective. 12. Be deaf to insults. The best response to insults or criticism from your enemies is to not listen to them at all. Stoics believe in the power of not letting external words affect you. Being deaf to insults is one of the most effective ways to neutralize your enemies. Instead of reacting to their criticisms or insults, ignoring those words renders all their efforts meaningless. Remaining silent in the face of insults is your greatest defense against your enemies. When an enemy insults or belittles you, ignoring those words and not responding neutralizes their attempt to control you. Not listening to what your enemies say is one of the most powerful ways to render them ineffective. 13. Stay true to your values. Stoics believe that remaining true to your moral values is the greatest strength. Even when your enemies attack, if you maintain your honesty, justice, and virtues, it becomes difficult for them to harm you. Staying true to your values neutralizes any attack they make against you. Living a virtuous life is your greatest weapon against your enemies. No matter how aggressive your enemies are, as long as you adhere to your values, you build the strongest defense against their bad intentions. Virtues like honesty, justice, and integrity allow you to win without fighting. By living a Stoic life, you discover the most effective way to neutralize your enemies. Your values are the foundation of your invincibility. These expanded Stoic ways provide strategic and profound methods for defeating your enemies without fighting and neutralizing them. Stoics teach that by acting with mental resilience, patience, control, and virtue, it is possible to defeat enemies. By using your mental strength, you can thwart your enemies' plans and achieve success without engaging in conflict.